Hello and welcome to Deep Blue Sea, the podcast. I'm your host, Jake Lew, and on this show we have been through the entire Deep Blue Sea trilogy scene by scene. Now looking at some Deep Blue Sea adjacent films. That's films directed by Renny Harlin, or featuring aquatic action, or sharks. And today we have 2 out of 3. We have those last 2. There's no Renny Harlin to be seen, but there are sharks and aquatic action in Pirates of the Caribbean, Dead Men Tell No Tales, or Pirates of the Caribbean, Salazar's Revenge, depending on where you live. I never actually looked into why that title changed. It just annoys me that it did. Either way, this is the 5th Pirates of the Caribbean film. The 5th and currently final. We'll talk about the future at some point. But in this one, directors are Joachim Renning and Espen Sandberg. Apologies if they are mispronounced. We have returning Johnny Depp, Jeffrey Rush, Jason McNally, etc. Not Steve Graham. But newcomers, Javier Bardem, Brenton Thwaites, and Kaya Scodelario are our main newcomers. We'll get to them. David Wenham. Get to them all soon. And on this one, the main MacGuffin thereafter is the Trident of Poseidon, as the son of, as Henry Turner, the son of Will and Elizabeth, is out to break his father's curse, and only the Trident of Poseidon can break all the curses of the sea. So that's what the goal is, and I need somebody else to help me talk about this goal. Apologies if I sound terrible. I have a very bad cold, and we've already postponed this episode at least twice. So we're doing this now. So I need a guest who will hopefully talk more than me this episode, because it sounds terrible when I talk. So returning, this is his 5th time talking about. It's actually his 6th film. Yeah, 6th time talking about pirates on this show, but his 15th appearance now. It's Nick Rehak. Nick, welcome back to the show.
Hey, it's me again.
Hooray, you're back. Let's talk about a better film than last time. Yes,
yeah, overall for the most part.
We've put on Stranger Tides behind us, although it did come up on a recent episode with Mark, where it just kind of mentioned in passing on Stranger Tides, and then Mark went on a little rant about how it's one of the worst films ever. I'm glad the always positive Mark agreed with us. His comment was like, "We just released the episode. I want to listen to it, but also it kind of feels like giving more of my time over to that terrible film. I don't want to do that."
Nice.
Yeah, it's no one likes On Stranger Tides. I defy anybody out there to like that film. But Salazar's Revenge, Dead Men Tell No Tales. That's what we're going to talk about today, and I think it's a much better film. So do you agree overall? You said
I wouldn't say much better, but it's tolerable. If Stranger Tides is intolerable, this film is just tolerable, which, I mean, that's not really high praise. You know, I'm okay without either film existing, unfortunately. Sure. But if you were like, hey, you get to pick one of them to watch, I'm going to pick this one.
Yeah, okay, that's definitely fair. I also think this franchise worked better as a trilogy and didn't need to continue beyond where it ended up.
Yeah, absolutely.
I mean, I have some issues with this one, but overall, I liked it. It's shorter than the previous ones. This is one of the shorter ones, so that's nice.
Which is weird because it doesn't feel like it.
No, as a lot. I was going through my notes. I've got 5 pages of notes from this film.
Good night. That is not a little.
We're not going to go through all of them. I've gone through and highlighted bits, but that's like this film was quite dense.
It is. It really is, and that's what. That's a really good way to describe it. It's just a dense film that seemingly tries to rush to get through it, but they don't. They spend too long on set pieces that should be shorter, and they don't spend enough time on the set pieces that they should. It's one of those films where it becomes frustrating as it goes on, but it's still better than Stranger Tides, which is just. Well, you heard the last episode.
Yeah, I mean, that's it. You say this spends more time on this doesn't spend enough time on the best set pieces. At least this one has good set pieces.
That's true.
There are moments like, that was a fun sequence. I enjoyed that, rather than last time it was like wait, this costs how much? So before we get into the plot, let's meet the newcomers. So we have a new star-crossed lovers recast younger, etc. So Brenton Thwaites as Henry Turner, the son of Will and Elizabeth, and Kaya Scodelario as Karina Smith. Spoiler alert. Daughter of Barbossa, but she didn't know that yet.
What?
Yeah. What did you think of these two, Nick? Any thoughts on Thwaites and Scodelario?
I thought they were fine. It was a nice little copy paste for the Will and Elizabeth dynamic, and then they just kind of punched it up a little bit to make Karina like super smart, and then they kind of punched up Henry to be just kind of like attempting to be a little more lovable, which I don't really think he hits the mark, but we get it. You know, it becomes one of those relationships where I'm like, yeah, we know. Like there's truly like no new ground to explore. It would have been neat to see some kind of like, I mean, I guess in a way it's a kind of role reversal, because I feel like at times like Henry's more of like the needs a hand and needs some help versus like Karina. Like she seems much more capable than what Henry does at times. So that's kind of fun to see. But overall, we know this dynamic. There's nothing really new. We're just kind of treading water here.
Yeah, I'd say it's not a direct copy from Will and Elizabeth in that in that first film, neither one of them was like into the whole pirate thing. Like Elizabeth she was interested in pirates, but wasn't in that world. And you had the whole let's start believing in ghost stories, Miss One, you're in one, Miss Turner, you're in one, etc. And like Will he was just a blacksmith. He happened to be a pirate's son, but he had nothing to do with that world. Whereas here, like Kaya Scodelario she's and again pirate's daughter, so the same thing as Will, but she's the offspring of a pirate, but doesn't really know it. But she like is strongly against believing in any of this until she's dragged into it. So it's similar to Elizabeth, but Henry is all about that pirate life. He's like obsessed with all of the myths of the sea, and is doing a terrible job of living because of it. Like he's just being traded from rowing in the galley just rowing in the army ships or the military ships, and being passed around and being beaten around because no one likes him, being obsessed with the sea. But I didn't think much of Henry Turner as a character. There's not a lot there. I really like Kaya Scodelario. She's from Crawl. We love Crawl on this podcast. Have you seen Crawl?
I have not, but I've heard that I should.
You absolutely should. It's a delightful film. It's so. I mean, it's such. We haven't covered it on here yet, but we've talked about it 20 times.
To the point where you could kind of just take all the snippets from previous episodes, put it together, and you'd have a full episode about Crawl.
Probably, yeah. I mean, it was a $13 million film. So small budget. It stars her and Barry Pepper as like a father and daughter trapped under they're trapped in a crawl space under a house, and alligators arrive and terrorize them during a flood. There's some great deaths. There's some great like people arrive and you think, oh, I can't wait for these people to die, and then they die beautifully. It's one of those films, and I can't wait to cover it one day. So yes, Kaya Scodelario. I hadn't really seen her much before then, and then now she's cropping up everywhere. Like she's in one of the Resident Evil films as well.
Okay.
We might cover at some point on this show too. Who knows?
You never know.
And the other big addition to the show is Javier Bardem, husband of Penelope Cruz from the last film. He's in Armando Salazar, the titular Salazar after the titular Salazar's Revenge. He's kind of a zombie. It's it's a bit crazy as to what he is. He was like a guy who hated pirates, tried to kill all the pirates, killed all the pirates except for this one crew of pirates. A creepily de-aged Johnny Depp, waxy looking kind of kid who tricks him into sailing into the Devil Triangle. She could never sail into the Devil Triangle. And he sails into it, doesn't survive, but somehow magically kind of remains a zombie captain. It's never quite clear as to why is he a zombie under captain who, when he walks around, it looks like he's swimming and his hair's floating around. I love that effect.
Yes, the effect was very well done. Everything else, not so much, but it was neat.
Yeah, like he and all of his crew and his ship are all like there's bits missing. There's a guy who's just a hat and hands. It's like, okay, that's a terrible existence, but fine. I hope he can see the rest of him. But for everyone else, it's just terrifying. And there's like a seagull missing parts as well, and his boat's missing parts. I liked his boat. His boat just kind of rearing up and devouring other ships was pretty cool. I liked that. So this Salazar is kind of trapped in the Devil's Triangle. He can't walk on the land, or he disintegrates. And he's out for vengeance, for revenge on Jack. And if he also wants to get this Conan Poseidon, because then he'll control the sea. Only the Conan Poseidon can control the sea. Good. So, let's get into. Did you like Javier Bardem in this?
He's fine. It's another case of let's get a big name in here, and he just. I don't know. It's not that he's squandered. He's just not given a whole lot to work with. At least with Barbosa and Jeffrey Rush's portrayal, there's plenty of scenery to chew up and a lot of fun to be had there. And I just feel like as menacing as Javier Bardem is in this film, it could have been so much more. There could have been so much more to the character. It could have been a little more developed. He could have just had a little more fun with it, been a little more menacing. I mean, you have like Bill Nighy previously, you know what I mean, as Davy Jones. He just absolutely crushes it. No one can really hold a candle to him. And then Javier comes in, and it's like, here we go, get another baddie. And I'm just like, okay. And I'm almost like annoyed with him when he's on screen sometimes. I'm like, all right, we get it. You're mad. Give us something other than mad, or show us some like heart behind the madness. But we don't get that. He's just kind of this rage-fueled machine, and it doesn't, I think, land as well as it could have. I found him to be more menacing in Skyfall than I did in this, you know?
Yeah, I mean, this is the part 3 of his terrifying-looking villains in big films with Skyfall and No Country for Old Men.
Yeah, No Country for Old Men, phenomenal on that. And even if he brought a tenth of that energy to this character, you'd have had something really intriguing and fascinating. But instead, it's just like, oh, we get it. You're a bad guy. See, and that's kind of it.
I quite liked Bardem in this. It was mainly I liked how he talked. I know he has a thick Spanish accent. I'm not talking about that. Also, like Javier Bardem is I've always thought to be a very handsome man, and they keep making him ugly in these films. Like, it's disgusting.
Isn't that weird how that works? I'm like, just let him be.
Yeah, there are ugly people. Cast them. But I'm right here.
Stop it.
The way he says Jack Sparrow, like that Sparrow, the way he like elongates things, and when like towards the end of the film, he's like mumbling to himself whilst he's like causing havoc with Jack. I liked the vocal performance he gave in this. I can't do it justice with my cough at the moment. But I had fun with him. I think he was having fun.
But see, I just feel like it wasn't enough. I feel like it's there, but for me, it's just not landing. Like all the pieces are there, it's just missing something. But I don't know what that something is.
It could be he just didn't have enough time, because as you mentioned, there's a lot in here. So I mean, there's a whole other faction of the British. Just like we had the Spanish last time, we have the British led by David Wenham, who were also just kind of always on their tail, always hanging around and catching up, and a threat as well for like 2/3 of the film. But there's no one in that really stands out. They're just taking up screen time. If you'd get rid of them and give that time back to Javier Bardem, then he could be doing more.
It's true. I'll give you that.
And there's a sea witch played by Golshifteh Farahani, who I don't know what's going on there, because she's in a couple of scenes. And people like go to her and get advice or a compass or whatever, and then they walk away. And she's no Money Penny Witch.
I was just about to say.
She's her own, she's bald, but with like red writing and lines all over her face and skin. And I felt she didn't fit in everything. And the fact that like the British go to her, and like so you have the British Army or Navy using a sea witch. This doesn't. Something wrong here, but okay, fine.
Yeah, it's not adding up, like at all. Here she is, talking to rats and in front of bubbling in cauldrons and what have you, and it's just not. Again, it's just something that doesn't land. Well, it works, but like nothing really comes of it other than to like advance the plot or just something. I don't know. I feel like it's just there to be there, and there's no value to it for me.
It feels like that's kind of a setup for, hey, she'll come back in the next one. We'll use her in Pirates 6. But then the end of this film is very much we finished this franchise. It feels like, well, I guess we'll get there. So let's get there. Let's go through the rest of the film and then get to the end.
Mm-hmm.
We start with this. This is initially set 13 years after the end of At World's End, with the Calypso Maelstrom, where we have a young Henry Turner, a child, tying rocks around his feet and going into the water. Not a good idea. Don't do that, children.
Mm-mm.
Don't follow this example, because your parent probably not manning the Flying Dutchman at the bottom of the sea, which is the case here. So he's going to find Will. He somehow finds him and tells him, "I'm going to break your curse, Dad. I'm going to find the Trident of Poseidon." And because Orlando Bloom in this film briefly starting to go a bit barnacly. There's things going on his face, which I thought that only started to happen if he broke his promise, or he didn't ferry the souls to the underworld, or whatever it is Davy Jones does. But I mean, maybe Will has been lax, not doing his job, or maybe he's just been in the sea too long and turning into a rock. I don't know. Either way, no Stellan Skarsgård. Don't see the rest of his crew. We just see slightly barnacly Orlando Bloom.
Yeah, which I feel like with this opening, we don't even need it.
Yeah, sure.
Like, we could just start with Henry freaking out on the boat, like, because he's pushing the wheelie thing around. I know there's probably a proper term for it, but he's pushing the wheelie thing around, and he's like, no, don't do that, be careful. I know these myths. We can introduce this character, just immediately jump out of it, because what happens later on would be such a massive payoff if we didn't have that opening scene. And I feel like the opening, I don't know if they try to make it as dark and as bleak as the other openings have been, because they kind of miss the mark if they're going for that. But we could just, I don't know. There could have just been a better start to the film than that,
I feel like there was a lot of publicity around Orlando Bloom's coming back. He wasn't in the last film, and everyone hated that, so we're bringing him back. So they kind of have him be in the opening. People are like, oh, he's back, great. And then otherwise everyone's just sitting around waiting for him to be, where's he going to come back? What's going to happen? And if it was just, he was at the end, that would be unsatisfying, maybe. It's still not terribly satisfying. But
I feel like it still would have had a better impact instead of just like, he's here, and he's gone.
Yeah, he's here. Like, he said no, and then he left. Okay.
Yeah, like, don't do it. Okay. It's almost like he's warning the audience, too. You don't want to keep doing this.
No good will come of this. So Will resurfaces, leaves Henry behind, and disappears from the film. Cut forward 9 years. It's now the year 1751, if you're interested. And Henry is in the Navy. Causes a ruckus on a ship. As he's like, don't go into the Devil's Triangle, because the ship is on its head into the Devil's Triangle. When you know it, the ship gets consumed by Salazar, and Salazar always leaves one man alive to tell the tale. Unfortunately, that is Henry, because Henry's like, I'm trying to find Jack Sparrow. And Salazar's, Jack Sparrow? Yes, tell him I'm coming. He says something specific. He says like, when the captain of the ship Henry's on is like, what are you? To Salazar, Salazar's response is death, and like squid ink comes out of his mouth, because he's not playing around. He's a bad guy, if you're wondering.
It's funny too, because the way he delivers the line, he's like, tell Jack Sparrow I'm coming for him. He's like, will you tell him that? Like, please tell him that kind of thing. And I remember in the trailer it being played as like a joke and like a bit almost. Like, can you tell him? Like, oh, hey, just, would you mind? But the way they have the music played against the scene, and I guess how they edited it, it's so much more menacing. And it's like, oh yeah, here we go. But then
it's kind of trying to get him to say the line, because because he like plainly says, "Will you tell him?" And Henry says, "Like, oh, can't you tell him yourself or something?" And Salazar's like, I can't. Dead men tell no tales." Cut to title film.
Just look at the camera, wink.
Because that's what happens. It fades to the title, but not when I watched it. It fades to Salazar's Revenge. It was like, well, that was a really clumsy way of ending that prologue. Like, dead men tell no tales. Salazar's Revenge.
I don't get why the title changed. That doesn't make any sense to me.
No, I don't get it. I didn't look into it. It's not evident on the Wikipedia page. I'm gonna just do a quick scan. In some countries, the film was released as Pirates Caribbean: Salazar's Revenge, a decision that the directors were not informed about.
Oh,
Great.
Sucks.
Clears that up, I guess.
I guess. Well, now we're all better for knowing, right?
Yeah. I mean, it's someone tell me. There's no reason. If it's not on the Wikipedia page, it doesn't exist. So there is no reason. It just is. Unfortunately, it's like, prior to this film, who is Salazar? This is a newcomer to this franchise. This means nothing to me. Anyway, So Remington Thwaite survives, goes back to, we'll see him again later. Cut to Kaya Scodelario. She's been accused of being a witch just because she's intelligent and can read a book. And as a woman not allowed to do these things. So she's being tried. And meanwhile, Jack, there's in the town of St. Martin, there's a new bank. And the bank has a big safe. And this is all being unveiled by Bruce Spence is in this film. Are you familiar with Bruce Spence?
Got nothing on that one.
Okay, he's the gyrocopter pilot from Mad Max 2 or 3, I forget. And he's one of the sharks in Finding Nemo, and he's like the town, the guy who's unveiling the safe in the town.
Okay.
Whose wife is in the safe with Jack. He's got a very recognizable face. He's got quite a long face, and he's always like, "Hey, Bruce Spencer's in this," and it's Bruce Spence. So always happy to see Bruce Spence crop up in things. It's always, it's him. So they're unveiling the safe. They open the safe, and what do you know? Jack is drunkenly waking up in there, having spent the night with Bruce Spencer's wife. We see Bruce Spencer calls her a trollop before he realizes who it is. And Jack's crew are stealing the safe. Doesn't go to plan. This is a really long set piece.
It's almost too long.
Yeah. I like that. It's very Fast Five in the dragging of a safe down a street behind horses instead of cars. There's a lot of Fast Five in there. And yeah, just go on a little bit too long. And there are like diversions where the chase is just happening somewhere else, and Jack is now, what's her name? Sorry, Karina Scodelario is like trying to escape, and she goes into this like astronomer's room and adjusts his telescope. And, no woman has ever handled my Herschel. The penis joke. This won't be the last one. And
there's an awful lot of poorly just landed double entendre jokes, and it's like, we get it.
Yeah, there's whole scenes that are then called back to. And then Jack comes in and he goes, "There's a woman in my there's a woman in my shop. Sorry, no, there's a witch in my shop and a pirate." Which that guy's awful. So Karina and Jack accidentally team up until Jack throws her off of a roof into some hay as a distraction, but fine. And then back on the bank again, and it's just the scene goes on for a long time, and it looks like it was quite an expensive scene to shoot because it's a big old set, and they're dragging a house around it, a bank around it.
Yeah, and I feel bad for the horses too, because that's a lot of weight that they're pulling, and them horses got to be just straining like, oh god, I can't handle it.
I would say it is impossible amount of weight for those horses to be dragging, given that it is a building.
Oh, there's a lot of impossible things that happen in this movie, but it just becomes like, well, if this is where we're starting, then continue the suspension of disbelief, because that's a thing that happens throughout the film. At least I feel in the first three in that trilogy, there are some very fantastical elements, but they still feel believable. There's a way that the context is there, the way the characters are within the events and the way they're reacting to it. It just feels like, okay, it's a bit of a stretch, but I'll go along. Whereas this, sometimes I'm just like, okay, I guess, like, sure, why not? Like, I don't know. I feel like the grandiosity of it just it loses the shine pretty quickly in this film.
Oh, yeah, this feels like the kind of script where they're like, we have undead pirates. The horses can pull a bank. We're like, okay, you can have, just because you have one doesn't mean just because you have like a fantastical element doesn't mean you can then disavow physics.
Mm-hmm.
It needs to work anyway, fine. So the safe ends up being empty because all the money falls out along the way. So Jack's crew abandon him because he's lost his luck. This starts Jack's kind of downward spiral, falling face first into some mud and going into a bar where the only thing he has left is his compass. And he gives away the magic compass for a bottle of whiskey, or bottle of rum. Sorry, bottle of rum. And listeners, I am my last rum today is Red Leg, a nice ginger Caribbean rum. It's delicious.
That sounds delightful.
It is. I had to open a new bottle. And I did not mind doing so.
I was going to say, I bet you were devastated.
I now have 5 open bottles of rum.
There you go. One for each movie.
It was my wedding anniversary recently, and my wife bought me a little selection of 4 different miniature rums, which was nice. One of them was called the Black Pearl, because I mentioned, I'm doing a different rum for all the pirate films, and she got me those, but it was too late because I'd already done one.
Oh,
but it was nice. And one was called Krusty Juggler from Hot Fuzz.
That's pretty funny.
It was my least favorite of them, to be honest. But it was still. They'll drank it. Yeah. Yeah. So Jack's gonna leave it. So he gives away the compass for the bottle of rum, and as he does so, Salazar above him, the heavens open and daylight appears, and he's like, "Oh, Jack has betrayed the compass. Let's go!" And he can sail out because apparently that was the magic that was keeping him. As long as Jack didn't give away the compass, then that was what was trapping. This didn't make a lot of sense to me as to why the compass controlled Salazar's imprisonment. Also,
it really didn't.
Also, Jack has given that compass away 5 times before now. He's given it to Will, to Beckett, to Norrington, Elizabeth, and to Gibbs. At least.
Yeah,
and I thought he initially got that compass from Moneypenny Witch, because she said so she gave him, there was a trade, and it was implied that was the payment that he got that.
I even feel like there's a line where she specifically references the compass, like.
But it turns out, like later in this film, in that flashback, that the captain of the ship Jack is on dies and gives Jack the compass. Like, it's up to you now, boy. Here's a compass. It points to wherever you want, and Jack's like, great. But in that very Indiana Jones and the Last Crusade sort of opening sequence, where every aspect of Jack's personality is given to him in the course of 20 minutes. The nickname of Jack the Sparrow, the compass, and every item of clothing he's ever owned.
Yeah, pretty much.
Dear. So, the bartender claims the compass, although he's never seen again, and the compass appears later somewhere else. And Salazar is now out and roaming and free. Still can't step on land, but is no longer confined to the Devil's Triangle. Which I'm pretty sure is a term that's on Urban Dictionary, but I haven't looked at it. We're not going
there. Children, please don't.
So it turns out that Karina has a diary left to her by her father, who she's never met and has no knowledge of, but he left her this, and a red ruby, a stone that's on the front of it. And she believes that the diary will be read under a blood moon through the ruby to see a map that no man can read that leads to the Poseidon's Trident. Right. Jack is imprisoned for being drunk. He doesn't even get to drink the rum, is the horrible thing. He has the rum and then he gets shot. So the thing he traded the compass for, he just doesn't even get to drink it. Devastating. He gets arrested, and in prison, Henry comes and finds him, and tells it, and is disappointed. So the man he's been looking for this whole time is this guy, this drunk in a cell with no trousers.
Classic.
And I actually find out what happened to Jack's trousers, but he doesn't have them anymore. But then later on, he does again. So it's not a thing. Not
it's the magic of the movies.
So he reveals himself to be the son of Will and Elizabeth. Jack's like, oh, does Mummy ever talk about me? Because he's a creep. I'll never forget, he's a creep. And they escape and set off. Great. Cut to Barbossa in this film. Hooray! He still had. Remember that at the end of last film, we were saying we wanted the mythology, the chronology to continue, and for Barbossa to still have Blackbeard's sword and all the magic it entails, and he still does. So that was good. He has the magic sword, and with it a fleet and riches and a golden leg and everything. He's got a string trio in his quarters, playing him music. So I'm glad that they kept that. And Jack indeed still has the pearl in a bottle. He can't get it out yet, so I like they kept those for chronology, even from bad films. So yeah, Barbossa has a fleet, and the two guards from the first film, from the Navy, are part of his fleet. Everyone in Barbossa's crew is dressed like a captain. They were like in finery, which I like my pirates to be dressed like pirate, like I like them all to be dressed like cabin crew rather than and have one captain. But everyone here is like in like red velvet cloaks and big hats, and I don't know. I feel like that was odd.
Which just shows how successful of pirates they are. Like, this is truly like when you've conquered everything, what do you do? It's like, it's no different than a video game. Like, you start off humble, but then once you get to a point, you're like, I'm going to customize everything so it's the craziest looking design possible. And all of them just come out looking just fabulous. And I kind of dig it for the most part. But like you, I want to see the rough and tumble. I just want to see a pirate. He's like, just give me the bare necessities so I can do what I got to do.
And what I just requested was that, hey, all the wealth remains at the one person at the top, and everyone below him gets nothing.
Yeah.
No, that's not what I want. I take it back. Trickle-down economics. That's what I want in the pirate life. So they're part of Barbossa's crew. Barbossa goes to the witch, and he gives him the compass and sets him on his way. I'm not sure what he's after at that point. I can't remember.
But I even love that he's like, "Where'd you get this?" And she's like, "I got my ways." Oh, yeah. Cool,
she's,
great.
Like, drinking green slime, and yeah, it's not pleasant. On their way out of prison, who does Jack run into? None other than his Uncle Jack. Paul McCartney is in this film.
For no real need or reason.
For less reason than Judi Dench being in the previous one. It's just bizarre. I don't know. You're a Beatles fan, aren't you?
I do very much enjoy the Beatles, and I see this and I'm like, oh, cool, Paul McCartney. I'm like, and no real need. Like, there's no need whatsoever for anything that he says. There's everything that we find out later, and it's like old bits and jokes. It feels like a weird, like, as if they've been in a sketch show before and they were like riffing on old bits that they used to do, and the audience like just loses it because they're like, oh my gosh, they're back together. It's what it tries to feel like, but instead I'm just like, okay, no different than like, Judi Dench showing up or Keith Richards showing up. Like, I'm just like, are we just having them to have them at this point? Like, there's no real need. If you're going to bring them in on like a serious role, or bring them in and don't really acknowledge or make a show that that's who that is. Like, make him the executioner, and you're just looking like, I feel like that's Paul McCartney. He's the executioner. And then it starts a conversation instead of just like in his face, like, look who we got in the movie. And I'm just like, cool. Like, you could just do something else with it. Don't just have it for the sake of having it,
Would it have been better if it was Michael Bolton? Because they had the SNL song Jack Sparrow. with
I'm not
going to
lie. I think that would have been phenomenal. Like truly, that's the kind of material that we need. We need, like, he's doing the bit and he's in there, and that would be so great. Now I want that. Why would you put that in my mind, Jay? Because now that's all I want is see Michael Bolton show up in one of these.
It's just come to me because I feel like Keith Richards didn't want to come back, or they wanted to just have some other legendary British rocker, and Paul McCartney, I guess he's around. What's he doing? Nothing. Okay, yeah, I can be Jack's uncle, and say okay, and then yeah, he's out. Great. I don't. It's just so bizarre.
I mean, the only other two you could go for, I feel, would be Ozzy Osbourne, or I don't know, Rob Halford from Judas Priest. I just feel like those are your only options for like old rockers to throw in there.
The main guy from AC/DC, I can't remember his name. Or like Gene Simmons.
Yeah, but they're not British. Like Kiss isn't British, AC/DC's out of Australia. Yeah. Like, if we're keeping it, like, because I think there you go, Angus, perfect. But I don't think anybody knows what he looks like outside of a schoolboy uniform, and I don't think you're going to have any people dressed as schoolboys in 1751 running around.
Schoolboy pirate. Yeah.
Look, that's true. Who's that on my? Oh, that's old schoolboy.
It's me. There must be a pirate school. I have to learn these things somewhere.
You got to learn it on the road. Because I think I'm fairly certain that Judas Priest is out of like Birmingham or Birmingham, however you say it, and then Ozzy's out of Liverpool, Maryland. Like the Beatles were.
Hang on, I know that Ozzy is English. Judas Priest are from Birmingham. Yes, you're correct.
Nailed it.
Ozzy Osbourne is from Warwickshire. Okay. Fine. Great. The middle of the country he's from.
But either way, it still would have that like old rock and roll representation. Yes, and sure. I mean, throw a hat on Ozzy and he's essentially a pirate. I mean, hell, throw a hat on Rob Halford. He's already got the leather chaps and digs, and he's more of like a motorcycle pirate. But like just something, just something. Don't rest on the laurels here. Don't just. I don't know. It just feels like a lot of attempts at weird fan service that, again, just don't land. There's a lot of things in the film that just don't land for me.
Yeah, I agree. This just feels like, hey, Paul McCartney's in this. Isn't that funny?
Yeah, exactly. Like, huh? Look at like someone's elbowing you. Huh? It's like, all right.
So we go from there to Jack isn't actually escaping. He's being guillotined, and Karina is being hanged. Because she's still a witch. This, I think, is a fun scene where this happens, because you have like Karina's trying to give her last words. The last words to Karina Smith. Hey, the last words to Karina Smith. And Jack won't let her. They have a little argument. It's a distraction. Because Henry shows up to try and save them, but he's also a distraction because Gibbs and the rest of them are there to actually save them. But Jack is still strapped into a guillotine, whatever, and it's fashioned in such a way that when it gets loosened, it just starts spinning around with the blade going up and down, getting ever closer to his neck each time it spins around. I really liked that. I liked the physics of it. I was genuinely like, oh my god, it's going to get him. Oh, that must be terrifying.
Yeah, and that's one of those like exciting things where I'm like, yes, like this is kind of what I want to see. I want to see these things that seem fantastical, but could in a way happen, and it works really well. And then you see Scrum coming up to kick the drop kick the executioner, and he's just like, nope. He just walks into it and knocks him down. It's hilarious.
Like, it's a full jumping 2-legged kick that gives the guy who just remains stationary. Little Stephen Graham failing. So Karina's she's still tied up, about to be hanged. And there's a lever that if it's pulled, the form drops out from under her, and she will be. So there's a lot of preventing that from being done. Scrum doing his best to fight, but the lever gets pulled. And wouldn't you know it, Henry is down to catch her, and this is where we get some more of the double entendres that are really just single entendres of like, are we allies? Considering what you're holding, we're more than allies. You're holding everything but my word. That's my stern. All these kinds of things. Like we get it. He's holding your butt.
Mm-hmm.
But it's a big dress, so we can't really see anything, and it's there's like 2 or 3 too many of those lines. We get it after 1 or 2. We don't need a full conversation about yes, okay, he's holding you, great. Let's end this. Like cut the rope, somebody.
Mm-hmm.
So eventually they do. They all get away. Get onto what ship do they get onto?
It's got some like real like funny name. It's like Wounded Pigeon or something about a dove.
Oh yes, it is Jack's ship, isn't it? Because Jack has a ship, but it's grounded. It looks like it won't do anything, but
it's called Dying Gull.
The Dying Gull. It just about floats, and so they leave on Jack's barely held together ship. Meanwhile, Salazar has his ship, and the British have their ship, and Barbossa has his ship, Blackbeard's ship, and they're all off. So Jack, Carina, and Henry are after the Trident. Barbossa is tracked down by Salazar. Salazar's about to kill Barbossa. He finds him, and he does the old. Every time I tap my sword on the deck, one of your crewmates dies. It just does a lot of tapping. Lots of Barbossa's crew dies. But no one that has spoken in the film, so it doesn't really matter. It's one of those, again, Barbossa's crew hate extras. They're like the Kraken. The Kraken loves eating extras. Salazar's crew loves killing extras. So Barbossa makes a deal with Salazar that he can get him Jack Sparrow by the next morning, which, optimistic. It's a big old ocean. Barbossa has no idea how close Jack is. He just knows which direction he's in, because he has the compass now. But he still says, hey, by the morning you'll have him. Okay. So Salazar, Barbossa kind of working together after Jack. The British, the Navy, should be trying to track down Jack and Carina and Henry for escaping. And they also want the Trident as well. Right.
Mm-hmm. Because of course.
So this is where we get the flashback to young, creepy Jack. And because he manages to trap Salazar in the Triangle, all of his crew then give him tributes, which is like his hat and his beads and his hair and all of the whole Jack Sparrow outfit.
Yeah.
Everything. The whole thing. That's what he's kept ever since. In these 20, 30 years. I don't know how well this ties in with, like, Jack made a deal with Davy Jones to be a captain for however long, but Jack becomes a captain in this scene. Not of the I don't know. It's the chronology, the lineage of these films seems to be fluid. So fine, we're just gonna take this one as it is.
And I actually noticed for the first time, because I even wrote this down, you know who else is on the ship with him?
With
Jack, when they're giving him all the...
I don't. Who else is on that ship?
If you look behind him when he's standing there, it's Keith Richards' character.
Oh. Who is not in this film?
At all. He just stands back. And you're just looking, you're like, that looks like a young Keith Richards, because it's supposed to be, I assume, that character that's with him. And it's like, okay, so he's in this too, but for why? Other than just for like an eagle-eye viewer to go like, oh, look who else is there. Like, there's no need for some of this stuff.
I'm going to have to go and check this.
Yeah, they're giving him tribute. As soon as he's like, and he's like, what's all this then? And he's like, tribute. And as soon as it cuts back to him looking at all the stuff that's coming, especially the hat, you just see him just like kind of leaning backwards a little bit. And it's just like, that can't be. But it's that same red coat and it's that same like real big hat. And you're just like, oh my God, that's a young Keith. This is look at this. But for no reason, because nothing comes of it other than him being there.
I'm looking at it right now. I've managed to go exactly to the right scene. First guess.
Nice. Isn't that weird?
Yeah, that is.
It's like, why?
It's obviously not Keith Richards.
No, of course not. No.
And no one. I'm amazed that you saw anything in the scene other than a creepy DH Johnny Depp face.
I think I wanted to start looking around at everybody else to be like, I wonder like if they saw how creepy and waxy he looked as well.
I couldn't look away. So it's like the rest of the screen could have been black. I would not notice. It's just, what is going on with this face? here. This is 6 years ago. I feel like what was being de-aged around then? Was Rogue One?
It might have been Rogue One.
I forget The Irishman exists. The Irishman was 2019. The Irishman is just too long. Rogue One was 2016. So they've done Rogue One. But as I've said on other podcasts, Peter Cushing is the perfect face that you want to make out of CGI. Because Peter Cushing looks like Jafar sucking a lemon. It's all angles and sharp edges. Johnny Depp has a human face.
It's true.
Sorry. I love Peter Cushing. This is the offense to it. It's a beautiful face. It's a wonderful face, but it's made to be a robot. And
I've never seen him in anything outside of like Star Wars being Grand Moff Tarkin. I need to really expand my Peter Cushing I don't know, experiences, intake, something.
I don't think I've seen him in much else. He just has that very sharp face.
He does have that face, yeah.
Yeah. Sharp face. So where have we come to? Where have we wandered?
I'm sorry, we're in the flashback.
Okay, well, I think we're done with the flashback because yes, I'm just you surprised me. I had no idea that was Keith Richards, but there's like another shot from like the back of them where it's clear like this is supposed to be a character that you look at and recognize, and I just well done. Thank you. So we go from there to we get some more of this. We're on Jack's boat now with Karina and Henry are tied to the mast. They're tied up because no one trusts them. They're just there and no one likes these two. But Karina is trying to convince them to go where she wants them to go to try and find the trident. And she says that she's a horologist, and they think that she means a sex worker.
Which
ha. And then it's a whole thing. Like Scrum's mother was one, and Marty was like, "I can vouch for that." And she, the study of time, always checking her watch. Okay.
Which I'm not gonna lie, that did make me laugh way harder than it should.
I just couldn't help be frustrated at the conversation. It was like, no, that's not what this means. I feel like you all know this isn't what she means. You're doing this on purpose. This is frustrating.
We get it, fellas. It's almost like they're under deck going, all right, mates, just like we practiced.
She was looking at the stars, always on her back. Okay, how many of these we got?
One of them pulls out a scroll. I got more here.
Crossing it off. So Jack realizes that Salazar is after him. He's on the sea. So he, Karina, and Henry are mutinied off the boat, and rowing to shore in a little dinghy, life raft, whatever it is. When Salazar's crew sees them and approaches, and Salazar knows he can't go on land. He sends all of his men. They all go chasing them. Karina has removed her dress, and so is in her underwear, I guess, but it's still like she's fully covered. Henry gets enthused that he saw her ankles.
He loses it over that fact. I saw her ankles. Like, I just like Jack's answer. You'd have seen a lot more.
Yeah, crap. Yeah, like if you'd kept your flag hole shut. What's the phrase?
Pie hole.
No, he says clag hole.
I thought you said pie hole.
Oh, I heard clag hole. I don't know what a clag hole is, but either way, mouse. So, Karina's swimming to shore. Henry and Jack, like, they're rowing, but then everyone's chasing them. And so, there are zombie sharks. The zombie sharks are here. We've been waiting 4.5 films for zombie sharks, and we get them. They're here, finally.
I forgot that they're in this movie. So when they came out, I was like, oh, yeah, Jay was happy about this.
Yep. And these are sharks that they've been kept on board Salazar's boat. And then he just like unleashed them, and they're just kind of woken up and put in the water. They're also missing bits, just like his crew. Like missing a lot.
I'm glad we get a hammerhead.
We get a hammerhead, a great white, and I'm not sure what the other one is. Let's just say it's a mako or a bull. It's something from Deep Blue Sea. Let's say it's one of those guys. Or a tiger. I don't know. It's missing the key bits to identify with. Let's say. And not, I can't identify sharks. Let's go with, it's impossible. So sharks are terrifying, and one jumps over in slow motion, gnashing at the boat. It's a beautiful sequence. I love it. And Henry decides to throw Karina's dress in the water as a distraction, which works. All three sharks go for the dress. Meanwhile, he then swims, but then the sharks immediately like, wait a minute, this is just a dress. That's a guy. Let's go. And Jack tried to escape, but got his foot caught in the boat, manages to get a rope around the shark. And so just as Salazar's men, who can run across the surface of the water, like our Lord and Savior. No.
Jesus Cristo, because it's Javier Bardem.
Yes. Like Jesus. They just before they get to Jack, the boat gets pulled away, so we have Henry swimming after Karina swimming, Henry going after her, Shark going after Henry, Shark dragging the boat with Jack in it, all these men chasing, these undead men chasing Jack. Another nice sequence, and then the shark kind of pivots off, and the boat gets thrown, and they land on land. Jack, Henry, and Karina make it to the island. One of Salazar's men accidentally steps on land and stood in the water, and the tide goes out a little bit.
Just
seems mean, and he's just dusted. So all of them are like, "Oh crap!" and just take a few steps back. And this is probably my biggest problem with the film is Salazar's like, "Well, you're on an island. I'll be waiting just someone just gonna leave the island." And later he does. Where's Salazar? Nowhere to be found. He's not in the film at that point. He just disappeared. We don't see him for half an hour. Because meanwhile, there's this whole stuff on the island is terrible, where they all get caught in nets, and Jack's made to marry this guy's sister,
which is one of the dumbest things I've ever seen in the franchise.
This isn't someone we've come across before. This could be another case of they're setting it up for Pirate 6, where Jack's still married to Scabies McGee, whatever her name is.
Because it would be funny if it was, someone that we had seen prior, or even like one of the women that had slapped him in Tortuga when we first are in Tortuga in Curse of the Black Pearl. But we don't. It's just some random people. And again, it feels like it's supposed to be, oh, we all know this person, and oh, it's like a bit kind of thing. And it doesn't land, and it's, I think, the lowest point of the franchise is that moment. I
am agreed. So Pig Kelly is this guy played by Kenneth Radley, and I think his sister is Beatrice.
That sounds about right. Beatrice sounds right.
She's just covered in boils and has scabies and
classic.
She was in. We mentioned she's been in a few things with Stephen Graham. She was in Boiling Point. She's married to Stephen Graham. That's why. Okay, this lady is married to Stephen Graham in this film and in real life. So Hannah Walters is her name. Okay, and she's in the new Boiling Point, which we mentioned in the previous episode. The kitchen drama starring Stephen Graham has now been made into a TV series. I haven't seen it yet.
Okay.
I plan to. So I hear good things. And she's in that too. Excellent. Good. We've resolved that.
Yeah. And we're all better for knowing it.
Yeah. Everyone's happy. You're welcome, everyone. Great. So, at the point where Jack is opposed to this wedding, and when the priest is like, "Does anybody have any objections?" Jack's like, "I do," and they take that to meaning "I do" to getting married, and he gets married. Haha. And then Barbossa shows up and whisks everyone away because he's after Jack. But wouldn't you know it, he's double-crossed Salazar. That's all Barbossa does. No, it's like bloody Magneto. He always double-crosses. Stop trusting him. Professor X, don't do it. Every film. And so he just wants to find the trident himself. He wants the pearl back. So he uses Blackbeard's magic sword to release the pearl from the bottle, and it grows a little bit. They chuck it in the water, and it grows a lot more. Great. Pearl is back, full size. And now Salazar is chasing Barbossa as well, I guess.
And it's wild too, because that should be a big moment. It should be the Pearl is back. It's a thing that we love, and we should all be excited. But when that moment happens, I'm like, I genuinely don't care at this point. After the wedding happens, I'm just checked out of the rest of the film, and it's so hard to get back into it. Like, as visually appealing as it gets, as interesting concepts arise, like even like the design of the trident. I know I'm jumping ahead a little bit, but even the design of the trident, like how it doesn't look like that traditional like golden three,
it's like
points to it.
It's cool.
And it's so cool looking. I'm like, this is how, but I'm just like, ugh, that's the best with just ugh.
Yeah, I mean we're not far from there, so we'll just skip over. Salazar catches up with them, the Navy catches up with them first, with Barbossa and Jack. Meanwhile, all of Jack's crew has been detained by the Navy. They break out of the cell by picking the lock with Scrum's toenail.
Disgusting.
Yep. So we need something sharp, and we cut to Stephen Graham's awful feet.
Like just ripping his toenails off. And if your skin is that soft and malleable where you can just rip the toenails off, you got bigger problems,
Yeah, I mean, they're pirates in the 1750s. They probably have scurvy. So this is an effect. But I thought they were going to cut to like them all holding Stephen Graham up horizontally from the lock and like turning him to try and unlock it that way with it still.
And that would be funny.
I didn't consider they're going to rip the toenail off. So everyone's back on their ships. The Navy catches up to Barbossa. But Salazar arrives first, and instead of attacking the ship with the person who's just betrayed him and the person he's been after this whole time, he takes out the Navy. Is that okay? Fine. Why did you do that, you fool? But then they have the ship eats the Navy ship, played by David Wenham, and then there's a fight between the two ships. I liked the moment where Jack was like jumping on the cannons between the two. That was kind of fun. And then when the figurehead on Salazar's ship comes alive, that's when I was out. So this feels like it should have been set up.
Yeah. And all of a sudden it's like, oh, now we're just getting like supernatural. Now we're just getting wild for the sake of wild here.
Yeah, I can take undead pirates on an undead ship that eats other ships, but I needed like somebody to cast a magic spell and figurehead to come to life. Like McGonagall in Harry Potter, just like she awakens all the statues in the last Harry Potter film. But this is just, hey, it's now part of my crew. It's a team. Let's go. And Jack takes it out by jumping on a rope, and the cannon shoots up and shoots in the head. That's a fun moment, but only because it got rid of this stupid thing. They end up, they're separating, but Henry's stuck on Salazar's ship. Karina because Karina the whole time is trying to find where they're going. She's navigating by the stars. She sees the stars. They point to an island. Go to the island. She, Jack, and Barbossa go ashore. There's one glowing rock missing, so she uses the glowing red rock she has and places it in place. The island parts and the seas part, and she and Jack fall to the bottom of the sea and survive.
Mm-hmm.
This is another one of those. Wait, how? What the? I get it. You're falling down a slope, but still, you went to the bottom of the sea. That's a long way. I know because I had to work out how deep you went.
I love that. You made it harder for me to do my job.
I mean, I will get to it at the end, but I was kind of looking up how deep. I was looking up the whole chronology of Poseidon, like where his trident might be. Which not in the Caribbean.
Okay.
It's Poseidon. He's a Greek god. Where did I wrote it down, but I haven't got where I wrote it down, so that's useful. Because it's like the Aegean Sea or something.
Not the Mediterranean.
I think like they're next to each other. Yeah, the Aegean Sea is like just the Mediterranean Sea. So I was looking up like how deep are things near islands in there, and they didn't go to the bottom of the sea because later in the film they are a ship's anchor's length down, and ships' anchors don't go down so so the Atlantic Ocean is 8.6 kilometers deep. That's longer than ship anchor go down that far. They went down about 200 meters by my guess. So about 600 feet ish, roughly. So they certainly survived that, and they're now at the bottom of the sea, which has been parted. It's like Moses this time. Not Jesus anymore. To the bottom, not the top. We're covering them all. We're going to turn to a pillar of salt at some point. And my Bible knowledge, very poor.
I know someone, so if you want to brush up on your knowledge, let me know.
Caribbean 6, Noah's Ark. Oh God, we could cover Noah. We're not going to cover Noah. No, thank you. I didn't like that film.
I'll watch that.
I mean, you got Nick Nolte as a fallen angel made out of rock. So great, okay.
I know. It's incredible. That film is the definition of bonkers.
No one said no to Darren Aronofsky. He was like, I want to make Noah. Like, what? I mean, okay, that's for kids, right? I was like, no,
not how we're gonna do it.
Oh, dear. Emma Watson's in that film, isn't she? Yeah. Oh, okay. Noah not being added to the list of films to cover on the show.
I'm here. I'm just letting you know I'm here.
I have more plans for you, Nick. Don't you worry. So they're at the bottom of the sea, and that's where the trident is. They find the trident. Salazar and his men survive in water. Also go down to the bottom of the sea. But Salazar is now possessing the body of Henry. Something he can do.
Yep.
And they say
magically,
like,
all of a sudden,
are you sure, boss? If you do that once, you can't come back. That's the only way. So he goes down and Maria Salazar fights Jack because I guess it's because he needs to be a step on land at the bottom of the sea, whereas all of his men are like still stuck in the water. So he's on land as he could do this. Why couldn't he just? It's like he always says he leaves one person alive. The first people that he leaves one alive of just possess him and live as him forever. There you go. You're out. You're free.
Yeah, there we solved it for you.
So this just feels like, how can we end this film? I don't know. This. So.
And no, that's exactly how that plays out.
So there's a fight. Henry Salazar gets the trident and he now has the power of the sea, and so becomes himself again, and Henry's like himself again, I guess. I'm not like the physical body of Salazar comes out of the physical body of Henry, who is smaller than Salazar. It's odd magic, I guess. I don't know. And he now has the power of the sea, and so he uses that to like pick Jack up with water and just throw him around. And he's having so much fun. He's like, wait, go over there. And this is when he's kind of mumble laughing to himself about all the fun he's having with Jack Sparrow. Meanwhile, Karina and Henry determine they translate more of the diary, and like we've got to divide, break. And if they break the trident, it will break all of the curses of the sea, including presumably Henry's dad's Will's curse of capturing the Dutchman. So they break it, and Salazar is now alive again. Jack is no longer being controlled by this water thing. All of Salazar's crew alive again. At the bottom of the sea. So they realize they can't breathe water anymore. They all now kind of stumble into the parted sea, which now begins to become unparted. This is it's just like the first film where these people are immortal zombies, not anymore, and now you're arrested. So as soon as things get solved, they get put in trouble again. It's the classic Pirates of the Caribbean way. It's how things happen here. So fortunately, Barbossa, he's at the top with his crew, and they've dropped the anchor down. He's on the anchor, and he's like, "Come on, everyone, get aboard!" And Jack, Henry, and Karina make it on, as does Salazar. So they're climbing up the ship's anchor, going up. All of Salazar just
and the weight and tug, of course, does not affect the ship at all. The ship stays upright the entire time.
It's
magically.
It's not just upright. It's upright on the edge of a water cliff. It is some truly miraculous sailing being done by Gibbs and his men. Which I don't. I mean, the physics of this. There is no water to like the ship's port side. I don't know, keeping it upright, so it shouldn't. Like, the anchor is hanging down. Even without that, you would need more pressure for the water on one side to just keep it up. But it doesn't matter. It's a magic. It's a fantasy. The zombie pirates, whatever.
And sharks.
We've had mermaids. We've had krakens. There's maps in stars. All kinds of things. So they're all climbing up. Salazar's climbing up too. Barbossa, who has put together that Karina is his daughter, realizes that Salazar's going to get to his daughter. So Jack takes Henry's sword, drops it down. Barbossa jumps off of the chain, grabs the sword, and takes Salazar out and down with him. And that's the last we see of Hector Barbossa. He gives his life to save his daughter, but not before. Not before she sees the tattoo of the stars on his arm. It's like, what am I to you? And then he responds, treasure! And then he jumps off.
Which is the creepiest thing you could have said.
This is not clear things
literally, up. just be honest. Be daughter. Yar. Something. Just, my love. Just something. Instead of just treasure. Like, ew. Like,
that could mean, that could mean more. That's ambiguous. But we get it. She's the daughter. It's fine. We're going to accept it as it's meant to be. But yeah, it's just I want to say something piratey as I die. Treasure! You're a piece of 8 to me. Some would say you're a 10, but to me you're a piece of 8.
Just to be less creepy.
So they all get up. Everyone celebrates, but then they realize Barbossa didn't make it. So they have a moment of silence. And when Jack gives the diary, which at some point Salazar stabbed Jack in the chest, but he had the diary, which protected him. That cliche. So Jack gives that to Henry to give to Karina, and Henry's like, "It's not all gone, Miss Smith." And she says, "Barbossa, my name is Barbossa." Roll credits, end of film. Oh no, wait, more film. Because that feels like it should be the end. But no,
it should.
We have to resolve the will stuff. So first we have to do. Henry and Karina on land, they're bickering, they're going to kiss it. He goes to kiss her, she slaps him, make sure he's real, then they kiss. Right, fine, whatever.
Which at no point does she do that. Like, that's the first time it's happening. I'm like, you've been with him, assumedly, a couple days now.
Yep. I think she just wanted to slap him. He's annoying, I get it. And then on the tide, on the horizon, the Flying Dutchman appears. Who's on land? Will! Orlando Bloom is back! His pet broken. And before we get into the next bit, his curse was that he's captaining the Flying Dutchman, right? Mm-hmm. Before he's captaining, part of that is he has to have his heart cut out. A physical act that happened. Surely the breaking of the curse means that he is just dead without a heart.
Yep.
That's more than breaking the curse. That's breaking the curse in surgery. And they didn't have access to that back then. Fine.
No. And even then, it's not like they were washing their hands during medical procedures before or after, so he should be dead. They should all be
rum
dead.
Over it and just jam a heart back into his chest wound. But he's on land, he's alive, etc. And Keira Knightley in this film, visually only, walks across the field and hugs and kisses. I'm pretty sure that Keira Knightley spent more time in hair, makeup, and wardrobe than she did filming for this.
She absolutely.
She is in this scene and a very brief post-credit scene. She does not say a single word. Nope. Not a word. Which just feels rude, I guess.
Yeah, and I bet she made a great amount of money to do that, too.
Yeah. I just, did she say, I'll come back if I have to speak, I'll come back if I have to speak, it'll cost you $11 million. And, okay, what if you don't speak? At 5. And then, yeah, whatever. So she's back, they kiss, etc. And then, I'm annoyed that we didn't get a Pintle and Rigetti on the Black Pearl. There wasn't a mini one. The monkey comes back, but not those guys. Oh well. But Jack's Captain of the Pearl again, because there's no Barbossa to fight him. The monkey brings him his compass, and his last line is, "I have a rendezvous beyond my beloved horizon," which is a nice line. I liked that.
I dig it.
But post-credits, Will and Elizabeth in bed, he wakes up, and Davy Jones has come to see him. Silhouette, Davy Jones. Which Bill Nighy did not know he was in this film, so Bill Nighy not part of that shoot. And I wasn't Davy Jones, but Des Barnes was on the floor. End.
Yeah.
So that's the end of the franchise. There have been no more. There have been rumors, or others. There's the rumors of the one with Margot Robbie, which wasn't going to be Pirate 6. It was going to be a spin-off. Pirate 6, a different film that. Apparently, both of these are still in the works as of this year. Someone, I think it was Joe Bruckheimer, said that they're still in development, still happening. Which, I guess that they're not averse to spending a lot of money on these films. So Margot Robbie is probably quite expensive these days. But
oh yeah, much more than before.
But apparently they are still working on it. So. We'll see, I guess.
I mean, if you're the creative director for this, and they're just like, Jay, we need a new idea for a Pirates film, like what are you even attempting to pitch? Because at this point we've covered a lot, and without going into like sci-fi fantasy like we did with Neptune's Trident, like what truly is there to explore next and like really plunge the depths of?
Atlantis, maybe.
Yeah, but even then, like that's starting to. Yeah, exactly.
That's the only kind of dramatic myth I can think of is Atlantis. I think the whole Johnny Depp Amber Heard thing ceased some filming or some production, but it has.
Oh, for sure.
Because they kind of wrote Johnny Depp out of the film they were working on at that point. Johnny Depp said he wouldn't then go back to it, but he has since said that he would. Orlando Bloom has said he will also return, but Keira Knightley has said she wouldn't. And the writer's strike seemed to have put a hold on production or development
on a lot of things right now.
Yeah, sure. But they were working on writing it, and then they stopped because it was a writer's strike, and that's what happened. The writer's strike. So I'm okay if they don't make more of these.
Oh, I'm more than okay.
Because you can do something else.
Mm-hmm. They won't.
Yeah, they won't. But this is where we get to my future plans, Nick, because I feel like there is a spiritual sequel to this franchise. There's another water-based film based on a Disney theme park ride. Do you fancy coming back to talk about Jungle Cruise sometime?
I would.
Okay,
yes.
Good.
Short answer, yes.
It's not going to be like next month because I feel like I need to give other guests a shot because you've been on here 15 times now.
And I'm sure people are tired of hearing me and the laugh I just gave and my complaining. And
Nick, everyone likes your laugh. Don't be ridiculous. It's.
Thank you.
But yeah, so this is your 15th appearance. We will have you back on, but probably not
next year.
Yeah. But do you want to know how Pirates of the Caribbean Dead Men Tell No Tales is similar to Deep Blue Sea?
Yes.
It's maybe the shortest list I've ever done. It's 5 things are on this list.
What? That's it?
Well, because this is the fifth. Like, I'm trying not to do the whole "they're at sea, there's a boat" kind of thing because we've done.
Which I appreciate because those could be very, make it gimmicky, but that's not what you do here. You do real work.
I have got a small boat is destroyed and people fall in the water.
Well, I take it back.
Claire Scott Lara is playing a woman of science. Is how she describes herself, which is what Dr. Sizzle character is. A boat explodes. There are 3 sharks, and a woman undresses before facing sharks. That's pretty much all I got. I can't even blame being ill on this because I wrote that list whilst I was watching the film. At this point, a month ago. But I could think of no more. From this. So it's a very short list. But I did work out how deep and blue this film is, so we can do that at least. So, Nick, as you know, Deep Blue Sea is approximately 14.5 meters deep, 31% blue. Oh, there are 4 to go through now. So, Pirates Caribbean: Curse of the Black Pearl is 0.44 meters up in the air. Actually, no, I'll rank them. Sorry. At World's End is the deepest or the least high at about a foot up in the air. Curse of the Black Pearl is second at a foot and a half. On Stranger Tides is like 7 or 8 feet up in the air. And Dead Man's Chest is like really far up in the air, 7.8 meters. So that's like 24 feet, something like that. Do you think Pirates of the Caribbean Dead Man's Chest is deeper than the rest of those and Deep Blue Sea?
I'm going to say it's the deepest of the franchise.
But do you think it's deeper than Deep Blue Sea? On average.
Yes.
It's very close. It is deeper than the other Pirates films, considerably, because as we mentioned, they go to the bottom of the sea. So this works out on average 11.74 meters deep. But that means it's next shallowest from Deep Blue Sea. On the ranking, it is next. They are next to each other.
Wow. Okay.
So yeah, that works out being about 38.5 feet deep. Is Pirates of the Caribbean Dead Man No Tales, 11.74 meters. So yes, just slightly shallower than Deep Blue Sea.
We were close though. We almost got there. You know what? Good A for effort, huh?
It's slightly deeper than Tentacles. So it's our 16th deepest film, or shallowest film. Yeah. No, 16th deepest, yeah. But how blue do you think it is? So at World's End, so Deep Blue Sea is 31% blue. At World's End was 29.4. Dead Man's Chest, 25.6. Curse of the Black Pearl, 19.5. And on Stranger Tides, 17.3. Where do you think Dead Men Tell No Tales sits in that ranking?
I think it's the least blue. I think this is dead last in blueness.
It's actually the second bluest of the Pirates films.
What?
It is 28.4.
What?
Mainly because of that last sequence on all the bottom of the sea stuff. That's very, very, very blue.
Okay.
So it's less blue than Deep Blue Sea. This is bluer than Shark in Venice, less blue than Sphere in the ranking. So it's the 29th bluest film we've covered so far.
Wow. Okay.
Yeah. So I mean that'll do it for Pirates of the Caribbean: Dead Men Tell No Tales. Nick, what have you got to plug?
I have a couple things, if you'll permit me.
Sure.
Obviously, you can find me over at rabbitholepodcasts.com as part of Lyrical Innuendo, as well as Play MST for me. I've been having an absolute blast on those podcasts. Please go check them out. Recently, I was a guest on the Forgotten Film Cast. So close to episode 200. Yeah, I am episode 199. I know. Todd Liebenow had me on, and we talked about Hearts of the West. It's a 1975 film that stars Jeff Bridges, Alan Arkin, and Andy Griffith. It was a lot of fun, so do check that out. Very recently, 2 days ago as of this recording, I met up with Will Slater over at Exploding Helicopter, and we talked about The Island, the early 2000s film from Michael Bay.
Yes.
It was a blast to talk about, so check out that episode.
Will hates that film.
He doesn't hate it.
Okay.
It wasn't like a total bash or anything like that. But there's definitely some moments where we were less than thrilled. I'll put it that way.
Sure. Yeah. Okay. It's not a film that I would recommend to Will.
No, and I think it was very much at least I don't have to talk about that ever again type of movie.
And we're done.
Pretty much.
Excellent. I've listened to all of that's been released. I have not yet listened to that Exploding Helicopter, but I will when it comes out, because it hasn't yet. But as for me, my site is lifeversusfilm.com. You can find me on Twitter at LifeVSFilm and on Instagram at JAYCLUIT. Follow this podcast on all social media at Deep Blue Sea Pod, and find everything Mark does over at moviesfilmsandflicks.com. And check out his articles over at The Ringer, because he writes for The Ringer now, because he's a big deal.
Which is really awesome.
It is really awesome. It's been like a lifelong dream of his, and I'm so thrilled that he's it's come to fruition. He thoroughly deserves it, and he's doing a great job.
Yes.
Next week. What's happening next week on this show? I don't know.
Ooh.
I just need to check a spreadsheet. And hope.
I thought maybe I'd be in on like the cool. Hey, guess what?
So next week is gonna be a re-release of a Movies, Films, and Flicks episode that Mark and I recorded earlier this year, looking at the jet ski action scene in Transporter 2.
Ooh, okay.
Statham on a jet ski, chasing. I think it's Jason Fleming. He's chasing, getting onto a school bus. A very fun sequence. Mark and I had a lot of fun talking about that.
Very cool.
That was released over on his show when The Meg 2 came out, in kind of celebration of Statham on a jet ski action. But then the week after that, we're going to be going back in time a little bit to the original Little Mermaid from 1989.
Okay.
So we're sticking with Disney. We're having a bit of a Disney, because like 2 weeks ago we did Avatar 2, and with all these pirates films. We're sticking with Disney a lot this year. But hey, I have Disney Plus, so what are we going to do? So Little Mermaid is coming up next, and who knows, maybe the newer Little Mermaid will come out shortly after that. We shall see. As for Pirates of the Caribbean, I've been telling tales, and in fact the entire Pirates of the Caribbean franchise. Nick, thank you so much for joining me for these 5 shows.
Thank you for having me on, man. I greatly appreciate it, and I thank you for all the hard work you put in, and all the research you did, and the math, and I just appreciate you as a person, and just thank you.
Thank you, Nick. I appreciate you too. I have so much fun talking to you about any film, and the next one will be worse. And we know that for a fact. But we'll talk about it anyway when we cover Jungle Cruise sometime in 2024. But for Tim and Tales, I've been Jake Blur, and I'll Deep Blue see you next week.